During the moment of silence, if we could remember of keeping our thoughts and prayers a couple of people, or a couple of families. In the past week, the brother of Fred Gilmetti passed away, Bernie Gilmetti. And Fred has been a longtime servant of the town. He's in the bylaws committee at this particular time. If we could keep them in our thoughts and prayers. And also a former selectman, Lars Anderson, just passed away. And if you could keep his family also in your thoughts and in your prayers. Announce the meeting is being recorded and televised by the local cable company. Make a motion to approve bill and payroll warrants.
So moved.
Second.
Is there any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Accept correspondence in the read file. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Is there any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Public forum. Now is the time for anyone in the public who would like to speak on a matter that's not on the agenda. And seeing no one from the public here, I guess we can pass over that one. New business. Act on the request of Town Clerk Don Varley to appoint Adelaide M. Is that Carew or Carey?
Carew.
Carew to the position of Registrar of Voters for the period of December 1st, 2021 through April 1st, 2022, in order to fill an existing vacancy.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
And the next item on the agenda under new business is discuss the starting time of the meetings. We've had the experience recently of having some meetings at 6 o'clock. I wanted to gauge the thought of the board on moving our meetings to 6 o'clock from 7 o'clock. Does that appeal to anyone? Do you want to keep our meetings at 7 and only meet at 6 on special occasions, like when we're swearing somebody in or whatever? Anyone have any thoughts?
Just a quick thought by me. We had quite a lengthy bit of debate about the middle school building committee meetings. It's a rather large committee and made up of myself and several other members of boards that meet on Tuesday. The middle school building committee meets on Tuesday. We had kind of set a hard stop at 6:30 so we could all go from
there to here.
Yeah, I have no objection to it. Just
But it would affect that other group.
Yeah, it was kind of planned to, a lot of there's some members of that group that come from Boston that couldn't start until 4:30 days. We couldn't do it on Wednesday because of school committee. So it was like our only day, plus it stays that Lincoln and Bob Curran and other members of the finance committee were meeting. If we could somehow schedule around those and start at 6, I have no objection, but something to.
Yeah. Anybody else?
Yeah, my preference is to stay at 7. That's my preference because I know some people work and they can't get here just at like 6:45 or something like that. I know I don't finish eating until 6 o'clock, my supper, because my wife works and when she gets back. So, I mean, it's
Right.
I 7, I don't have a problem with 7. I prefer 7, my point.
And yeah, just yesterday was my first day back in the office in quite a long time. And if I catch the 4:30 train, I'd be able to make a 6 o'clock meeting. If I miss that train and take the next one, it'll be dicey. So.
Okay. Well, like that, my sense of the meeting is it will stay at 7 unless it's a special occasion. Rats. That's okay. I thought we had maybe an opportunity because most of us are fairly free. You can usually get here in the afternoons and. You're not doing anything. I'm not doing anything. He's not doing anything.
Well, a lot of times I'm out on the road too, so.
If that had, again, my only objection to it is because of the other committee and.
That makes sense not to disrupt that.
And yeah, we kind of want Randy and Lincoln at those meetings.
Yeah.
And Bob Curran, that,
And, yeah.
and where the employees are
Right, okay.
Have to come back.
Mr. Chairman, if I could, so right at this moment, we still do have a swearing-in ceremony for the two firefighter paramedics, relatively new
On the
firefighter
23rd,
paramedics, on the 23rd.
Right.
So at this moment, we'll still plan on that
We'll
at
do that,
6?
yeah, we'll do,
And then,
yeah. we'll do
Special
that at 6.
occasions, yeah.
yeah, okay, great, just to confirm.
And what we'll do is we'll do what we've been doing, is we'll start off downstairs, and then we'll leave, and actually, we will be starting our meetings earlier on that day, that particular day. But yeah, we'll stay at 7. We'll remain traditional,
All right.
as if we were still Abington.
Mr. Chairman.
We'll still be formally Abington.
Just on the 23rd meeting, I know that's the classification hearing.
Right.
The 23rd was the only day I could not be here, so I just would like to let the board know that
Okay.
I will not be here on the 23rd.
Okay, and if you
Prior engagement, yes.
got it. Everybody, do we have 3 members that will be there that day?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Good. Old business. Act on mission, vision, and value statements. What kind of action are we looking for on this?
So I think, the board has those drafted up from its October 23rd retreat meeting with many folks in town. From the town's consultant, Ann Donner. I'll just give a brief recap as to where we are with strategic planning, which is she agreed that if the board was ready to do so, it would make sense as the policymaking board of the town to adopt these mission statement, vision, and value statements if the board so saw fit, if it was ready to do that at this point. The next steps in speaking with her yesterday is to according to her, for she and I to come together and firm up a little bit the draft 5-year strategic priorities document, and then to have a department head meeting to discuss the implementation of those 5-year policy initiatives. So that's her vision for the steps forward. Obviously, we're still moving towards having a draft prepared by her and ready in December, and then for a final towards the end of December.
So that makes sense to people. We'll adopt it. That allows her to feel free to draft the plan.
Yeah.
Okay, for December. Is there a motion?
I'll make that motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion?
I know you guys discussed this last week, but I would just like to thank all the participants and the department heads, and I thought it was a worthwhile exercise.
It was a good day.
Yeah.
It was a good day. Hey, all those, hearing nothing else, all those in favor of...
Aye.
Right.
Great. Progress report on search for assistant town administrator. I'll lead off, Lincoln, because I have to correct some misstatements that I made. In going over the last meeting, the meeting on October 12th, and we kind of outlined the process going forward for this search, I made a statement, and I don't know where it came from, and the statement, frankly, and the statement was that the candidates, the finalists, would be interviewed twice by the full board. I don't know where that came from. I saw it. I saw that I said it. I don't know why. I'm going to take it back now. That's not the process that we envision. What we envision really simply is we have a number of applications now that the position has been posted. It's going to remain posted for a couple of weeks till October 23rd anyway. That would be like a catchment point when we'll figure out what we have at that particular point as far as numbers are concerned. And Justin and Lincoln and I will go over those applications and come together after the 23rd, probably the first week in December, to see if we can agree on maybe 5 or 6 people for us to interview, for the subcommittee to interview. If we find that many people out of, I think there's 34 or 5 people have applied already.
Currently, there's 35, yes.
35.
Excellent.
So we'll try to winnow that down, and then the next step would be for us to interview those 5 or 6 people within a week or two of December 1st. Hopefully within a week of December 1st, and then choose 3 people I'm just going to throw out 3, it could be 2 or 3, for the entire board to interview. And the board will interview it, will accept Lincoln's recommendation, his recommendation at that time, and then the board will discuss it and then vote on it. So we're probably looking at January for the whole process to be done, I think. Okay, set.
Yeah, seems like a plan.
Okay. We have, I have hard copies here. I asked Laurie to make hard copies because I'm old-fashioned. I like holding paper.
Yeah.
I still read the newspaper in the morning. If any of you wanted to look at the applications too, they'll be available. There'll be a hard copy available in the office, maybe.
Sure.
I think if we look at them, they become
Public
record.
If we all look at them.
Yeah.
If we, a subcommittee
Yeah,
can
you
look
might
at-
right. You might. Yeah.
Are resumes not protected, though, or excluded?
No, that they are in a subcommittee,
Right.
but not on the final selection committee.
Okay. Good.
All right, and you're going to come with how many that'll come before the board? We'll say the 3 finalists that'll come before the board. We'll get hard copies prior to that
Yeah, and that.
of your selection.
And I don't believe, correct me if I'm wrong, I don't believe when we deal with semifinalists, their names have to be made public. Their names don't become public until they're finalists, I think. Is that correct?
I would say that's correct. I mean,
I'm
certainly,
not sure. If we could check that.
certainly when the board as a whole has its agenda posted for the meeting where you'll be interviewing however many it is, certainly that would be public information at that point, but I would say not until then.
I don't think semifinalists have to be, their
No,
names have to be made
they
public.
definitely do not,
Right.
no.
Because the finalists, those will be the only ones that will be on camera, right?
Yeah.
Interviewing, so then,
Okay.
that makes
So
sense.
we
Sounds
clear
like a
on where we
plan.
are going forward, and the 23rd is it's not when the search is closed, because it might be possible that we need to keep it open for a while to find somebody that we like. But that will be like a catchment point, and at that point, the 3 of us will look at what we have as of the 23rd of November. And we'll look at it within a couple of days of the 23rd. We'll try to find some agreement amongst the 3 of us as to who will come forward to be interviewed as semifinalists. And then later on down the line, we'll,
Just don't get any turkey gravy all over the...
okay, or cranberry sauce. Anybody have any thoughts?
That's excellent.
Just one quick thought. Since this person would be working directly within our office, would it make sense to include our executive administrator, Lori, as well? At least in the early process with me, you, and Lincoln.
Yeah, no. I see Lori shaking her head. This is a busy time of year for Lori right now.
Didn't want to put you on
I
the
think it
spot,
would
but-
make. I've talked to Lincoln about this, and I've talked to Lori about this, and I think that it makes some sense for her to be there when we interview the semifinalists.
Okay.
And we talked.
But not
about that.
necessarily to drop 40 resumes on her desk and ask.
No.
Okay.
No, obviously, she's an important link in this chain, and she's going to be working with this person closely.
Yeah.
So we would like to have her be able to be involved at that level of the
input,
process
yeah.
anyway. And we might ask her for opinions of what she thinks at that time.
Yeah.
Not until then. Not until we winnow it down to those five or six people.
All right, that works for me.
Okay. That work for you, Laurie?
I think including her in this, is a great idea.
Yeah.
You're going to be working with this person 95% of her time, probably, and it makes a lot of sense to have her in the loop, I think, on this.
Yeah, and I think that's a good time to involve her in the loop too at that stage of the game. You know, she doesn't have to. Yeah, she doesn't want to go through 40 resumes.
And I think that's something that we, when we hired Ken, I think we had Mary Beth sitting in for a bit too.
Yeah.
Just, so
Yeah.
it doesn't really break the the mold. I don't think
Doesn't
she was.
break the eggshell?
Yeah, I don't think she was involved in the whole process, but she did have, because obviously how close they worked
Right,
together.
right. So it's analogous to that.
Yes.
That makes some sense, too.
Excellent. COVID-19 update.
Yes. So briefly, as the members of the board know, Chief Clancy's been providing regular weekly great updates regarding our positivity rate. I would say the one thing I was really heartened to see is that we have gotten to 60% of those who are eligible to be fully vaccinated, to be fully vaccinated in the town of Whitman, as residents of the town of Whitman, through this past Thursday. So the vaccination rate is going up slightly each week. The other big pieces, I think most folks know this, but I'll just sort of say it out loud to make sure. I think as most folks know, a week ago, the vaccine was approved for those ages 5 through 11. So obviously there's a lot of parents out who are making that choice about whether or not to vaccinate their children. In addition, this past Thursday, that Occupational Safety and Health Administration long expected regulation did come out. I spoke with town council about it yesterday. There is still not clarity on whether or not that will apply or will not apply to municipalities in Massachusetts. Massachusetts is actually completely unique, apparently, in the 50 states in the fact that we have a law that references the OSHA rules, but we do not have an OSHA plan, which would make it clear that it would, in fact, apply to municipalities in Massachusetts. So town council believes that there will be a ruling or guidance, whatever the case may be, from the executive office, the state executive office of labor and workforce development, to help clarify that later on this week. So stay tuned, I guess, as to whether or not that will or will not apply to the town of Whitman, those vaccine mandates. So that's that. The other piece is, I think the good news. The good news is that the town's COVID-19 clinical coordinator and Chief Clancy have been working really closely and carefully to have booster clinics set up. Those are set up. Any resident of Whitman is welcome to go on our website, where it is front and center, to sign up for a booster if they've, of course, already received they're fully vaccinated, and it's after 6 months of the being fully vaccinated. So there are still slots open at the Knights of Columbus on November 17th and 18th, and there will be another session early in December. So certainly folks are welcome to go on there, and it is much easier to apply and get signed up for a booster shot than the Mass Vax Finder site. It's much simpler to navigate, which they're to be commended for. Finally, I wanted to mention, as the board saw in an email yesterday, I spoke with Elena Morrow yesterday, who is the president of the Southeastern Philharmonic Orchestra. The orchestra, the board approved the use of the Town Hall Auditorium for a December 5th holiday concert and an April 24th concert that is being funded by the Whitman Cultural Council. Those two concerts from the Southeastern Philharmonic Orchestra. In speaking with her yesterday, she had requested that, similarly to the Brockton Symphony Orchestra, that concert was this past Sunday, that there be a mask mandate for attendees at least the December 5th concert. And I'd suggest, you could take those in tandem now, or not, but you could take those in tandem, December 5th and April 24th, if you don't want to vote on it again later. Or, who knows if masks will be recommended at that point? No one knows, right? But that request came in, and so I wanted to put it before the board for your consideration. And finally, perhaps, you may want to consider whether or not, when this request comes in for an event at the Town Hall Auditorium, and that request for a mask mandate in order to perform comes in, whether or not you want to entertain that in a general sense or just specifically for these two concerts. So,
Okay, thoughts? Justin?
I just think, similar to last time, this is a concert sponsored by a grant from the Mass Cultural Council through, directed to this organization through the Whitman Cultural Council. It's a benefit to the community, and if they're policing their own requirements, I don't see a reason not to agree to it.
Brian?
Question, Lincoln, was this another request of either the mask or they don't do the concert?
I pushed her on that a little bit in our conversation to ask specifically, it was a request for a mask mandate for attendees at the concert. And I specifically asked her that question, would this performance happen if it did not occur? And she said she'd check with the musicians who would be performing and get back to me. I did not hear from her since that conversation yesterday morning. So I can't answer that definitively at this moment.
Okay.
Anyone else? We affirmed the Brockton Orchestra's desire to have audience wear masks. I see this as honoring the same, giving this organization the same respect. They'd like to have it that way for their performers, and I think it would be not only in the interest of public health, but it also be in the interest of courtesy as a host to honor that too. I don't know whether or not we need to be so formal as to actually vote it, or just a consensus of the board that thank you for the request and we'll honor it. I don't know what you would like to do. Do you want to formalize it with a vote, or?
Well, I'll add that I don't think that we should go so far out as to April. Just my thought. I think a lot can change between now and then that I don't necessarily think we need to deal with that right now. As you obviously can tell by a few of us, we're not wearing any, but we're vaccinated, and et cetera, et cetera. But I believe that this is about choice, and they chose to ask. And the Whitman citizens can choose to come or not. So I think having the mask request is probably the right thing to do. You don't have to go if you don't want to. If you want to go, wear a mask. It's an hour and a half. I think it is, like you say, about being respectful of someone's wishes. They're providing a service to us.
On the matter of voting, do you want to have a vote?
I think we should.
Okay.
I'll make the motion that we
honor their request.
honor the request for the December 5th.
All right, is there a second?
March.
I'll second that.
Okay, is there any further discussion? Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much. I ended up wearing a mask for a performance of Return to Margaritaville, I think was the name of the play. I went to last weekend at the Hanover Theater in Worcester. It's the first performance in the theater since the pandemic started. Great performances there. They're as good as the ones in Boston. They really are. So we sat there listening to Jimmy Buffett music and watching a kind of a love story and all that. The place was packed. They're not social distancing. Everyone was in seats, but everyone had masks on for the whole time, and it's not that much fun to wear a mask for a couple of hours, but it's okay too when you're being entertained.
How did you drink your margarita?
You can deal with it.
How did you have your margarita, though?
I didn't have one, but I could
Got a
have.
little hole in the mask?
I would have dealt with it somehow. Yeah.
A quick question, Lincoln, on that concert that just happened, was the attendance okay? Or
There's approximately 50 people there.
50?
Yeah.
Yeah, my wife said it was about 50.
Yeah.
Okay, done with that. We up to the Northeastern storm recap?
Yes, yeah, so I just wanted to briefly touch on that. Obviously, that was a really big event and affected everyone in town, and certainly the town departments quite a lot. I certainly wanted to commend, deep appreciation for the police department, Chief Hamlin's here, fire department, Chief Clancy certainly, and his members certainly did a lot of amazing work in keeping the town safe, and really also the DPW, both the water and sewer departments and the highway and grounds and parks. They really did an amazing job, I think, in cleanup, making sure that our water and sewer systems continue to function despite not having power for several days, and that the down limbs and everything were cleared as quickly as possible. I did want to touch briefly on, I think, a couple positives and a couple new things that came out of that I'd certainly like to continue going forward. But certainly Chief Clancy did an amazing job really keeping on National Grid, and we certainly fared a lot better than a lot of our surrounding communities who had the same, or maybe slightly more, but very similar levels of damage. We certainly got power back a lot more quickly than a lot of our neighbors, and that's in no small part due to his persistence with them. So really appreciated that. I think I know we've done them in the past. We sort of expanded them and expanded the hours, and that's certainly something that I think was really positive, was having the warming and charging stations both during the day at Town Hall and at the Senior Center, specifically targeted towards seniors, but also at night for a few hours at the Town Hall and the Town Hall Auditorium. That was really well received from what I heard, and I'd certainly like to continue to do that in the future, particularly when it's cold, but maybe in general as a charging station, even if it's 80 degrees out. So that's certainly something that I want to continue, and certainly having the work with the DPW and Superintendent Martin about having a brush pile. We don't typically have a brush pile at the Department of Public Works. We have a leaf and grass pile, but making sure and working with him that because there were so many limbs down, certainly the DPW worked really hard and has completed that work in clearing everything that was moved over to the side of the roads and cut down that fell in the roads or on sidewalks, certainly in the park, and that was cleared away by the DPW, National Grid, or National Grid's contractors. They certainly did a great job clearing that off. As far as downed limbs and debris that is on private property, as I said, we don't typically have a brush pile, but we do for 3 Saturdays. This past Saturday was the first one, and then these coming 2 Saturdays from 7 a.m. to 3 p.m. Residents, if they can prove their residency, if they have a lot of folks already have a sticker for the leaf and grass pile. If they don't have a sticker, that they can just quickly prove their residency with their car registration or license, what have you, then they can bring that refuse, that brush, that clean brush, down to the DPW to get rid of it. So I think that's certainly something that I want to continue in the future with this kind of event. I think the negatives, I just wanted Chairman Kowalski and the involved department heads and myself on Thursday had sort of a recap meeting to talk about what we did well and what we can improve in the future. I think some of the things are completely outside of, or not completely, but largely outside of our control. Certainly there was a lot of, as Chief Hamlin talked about, there's a lot of National Grid was not very responsive in terms of getting downed wires out of the road quickly, so that road, and having that be a priority, especially for major routes, so that that road can be cleared for emergency vehicles and anything else for that matter. And National Grid was not very responsive in that. I think ultimately that's a statewide issue that needs to be addressed, perhaps in the legislature. I don't think we're going to necessarily solve it locally, but I want to make sure folks were aware of that was a real challenge, a very real challenge of having down wires that were not being cleared in a timely fashion by National Grid, so major roads could not be, and folks were, we had police standing there on overtime to guard that wire and make sure folks were safe, and National Grid didn't seem to have a lot of a lot of incentive to move quickly to move it. And the other thing is that obviously, you know, we had, I think we all experienced this, where communications, and particularly cell phone communications, were really badly affected, and that is a pretty new phenomenon. And that was, I think it's safe to say that was a really big fall down on the part of the cell carriers, and it's simply because it seems as though there's no reliable backup generation for power at their cell towers. Or if there's a generator, it wasn't working, or they weren't filling it with gasoline, or whatever the case may be. And that was a challenge for everybody, but it was a real challenge for the town, and for communication between public safety folks. So while we had internet and communications at Town Hall because of the fiber that we pay for, rightfully so, you know, when Chief Clancy, when Chief Hanlon, any of the folks who need to be involved were out on the road and assessing, it was really hard to communicate with each other because our cell phones weren't working just like everyone else's, you know. So that's, again, largely outside of our control. But I think the things that we identified that are more within the town's control, and I think lessons learned and things we can do to be more resilient the next time this happens, is making perhaps thinking about, as we put together a capital plan and capital request for town meeting, thinking about some specific targeted capital items to make sure that the town's more resilient in its response. In particular, I would say Chief Clancy had identified the possibility of getting some more digital radios so that public safety, officials can communicate with each other better if cell phones go out again, which they seem to probably will be happening in the future. In addition, maybe another wood chipper. We have one wood chipper, and clearly that was insufficient for this kind of storm. And making sure that we have sufficient generators that are working at all the sites, in particular across town, but in particular at the sewer treatment plants. We had a generator failure at one of the sewer treatment plants, and they did great work to make sure it kept working, but we obviously need to have generators that are working. So those were, I think, some of the lessons learned that we came up with, but certainly it'd be great if at this meeting or in the future, if any members of the board have other ideas on what we can do better next time, please let me know. Please let the relevant department heads know.
If I may, on a personal note, I live off of School Street, and I know that there was a good-sized tree came down and blocked School Street, and I know that the DPW moved it onto the person's front lawn, over the side to allow emergency vehicles to get there, and then during when the storm was done, and of course the DPW trucks were riding around, and there was branches and everything blowing in the street. They were picking them up, making sure the streets were safe for emergency vehicles and for people that were out driving. So DPW, police and fire, outstanding job. I mean, they couldn't have done any better.
I bet. 100%.
Yeah.
Anyone else?
To echo Dan's point, I personally saw Chief Clancy circle my street a couple of times, so he was really out there. I had one of the streets that was pretty obstructed that first night at least. And a question for you, Lincoln. I think this was our first major storm since the town took control of the streetlights. Did we lose any, and have we had to test that maintenance contract?
Yeah, no, I had that question in to Superintendent Martin. We did not have any major loss. I think we may have lost one or two, and we're going to get that exact answer, but largely no.
Okay.
Yeah.
Anyone else? I think that it's clear that because of the difficulty we had communicating with phones, if we didn't have Josh McNeil working with us, it would have been more of a disaster. Mm-hmm. I just want to point out the kind of work that he did and how valuable he is, and maybe in the future, as we look at budgets, we need to think seriously about having some backup for him or getting him some help. And I think we did talk in that roundup meeting, about his training some people to pitch it for him if he can't be there at a certain time.
Absolutely.
But beyond that, I think he needs some recognition, and he needs some help. He did a great job. And I also would like to point out the job that our our janitor, our custodian, Todd, did a remarkable job during that crisis too, especially with respect to the charging centers and helping people out. He was good.
Absolutely.
The team came together.
You know, it's the people that work behind the scenes that you don't see, that don't get the recognition. That was very good, Carl, that you did that.
Absolutely. No, thank you, Mr. Chairman. And one other little pitch I'll make is that we have a CERT team of volunteers, and they certainly, as you said, Todd DeCuto, our custodian here in town, did amazing work in making sure that worked for people and that was available here at Town Hall. But he was provided some relief from the CERT team. We have some volunteers. We could certainly, I think, always use more volunteers. So if anyone's interested in being in the CERT team, I think the unfortunate reality is that it seems is that we're going to continue to have events like this, and they're going to continue to be more frequent. And so certainly coming together as a community, if folks are looking for a volunteer opportunity, that would be most welcome. So.
DPW building.
Yes. So I had met. Well, let me back up. So within the last couple weeks, I received the feasibility study from environmental partners, which was paid for by an appropriation at town meeting, to look at the needs and the likely cost of a new DPW building. I think, certainly folks watching and certainly the board knows the condition that building's in. You have in your packets that final feasibility study from environmental partners. It identifies a amount of $10.1 million in order to have a new feasibility, 10.2, a new DPW building. I met with DPW Commission Chair Clancy and Cleary. I'm sorry, Cleary and the two DPW superintendents last week to talk about what the plan going forward is and how we as a town can think about what the needs are for the DPW building with this feasibility study in mind. In that discussion, Chairman Cleary and I talked about I think it would make sense to have a joint meeting of the DPW commissioners and the Board of Selectmen to talk about the desirability of what's before the board, before the town in this feasibility study, if this is the project that the town wants to pursue at this time, and if so, what the timing of that would be. Preliminarily, my recommendation will be and is to pursue it in two pieces, to look at 10% at this coming May town meeting, to come up to have 10% appropriated, so that clear architectural drawings can be drawn up, and then at a future town meeting after that, either a year or a shorter period, have the attempt to pass the sufficient funds to get the building actually built, and that would certainly require an operating override at that time, almost certainly. So that's sort of the framework going forward. I think the other key thing to think about is, in addition to is this the building that the town wants and what the timing might be in achieving it, I think another thing to consider is whether at town meeting or as an appointment from this board, but probably at town meeting if it's desirable, is to whether or not to have a building committee for the DPW building separate from the DPW commission itself, to oversee that project and look at it similarly to the middle school building committee or other school building committees that have existed in the past. So obviously happy to take any questions about that now, but mostly just wanted to touch on that and suggest to the board that in the immediate term there be a joint meeting. Chairman Cleary had suggested December 7th between the two boards to talk about what the strategy is going forward. So.
I'm looking at the numbers here. The longer we wait, the more expensive it's going to get. I mean, way back when, like 5, 6, 7 years ago, when we were trying to put it forward, we were getting the top line buildings, both of them, for the price that we're looking at here, less than what we're looking at here. So, I mean, the longer the town puts this off, first of all, the more that building's falling apart. It's out of the 50s, if not even sooner, older. It's going to cost more and more. So eventually we're going to need a new building. And the people need to understand that.
And we can start convincing them of that with a joint meeting between the two. And is December 7th okay for people?
Yep. Just some questions I would have.
Yeah, Dan had it.
Oh, I'm sorry. No, go ahead, Brian.
When we were talking about OSHA a few minutes ago, if OSHA got involved with this building we currently have, we'd be in deep trouble. It's a hazard down there. And 5 minutes ago, we were all praising our public workers for the work they did on this pseudo-hurricane, whatever it was. In the next breath, we're trying to figure out how to make their life safer.
Yeah, and we have to do
So
that.
we need to work on this and convince the citizens that this is an important part of going forward. Recently, the federal government passed the infrastructure bill. I have not really looked hard into it, but that might be one place where we could get something to help, because from what I understand, there's a lot of gray area there. So we could possibly get some kind of funding, at least to help with the cost with that bill. So that's something that our state senator and state rep should look into as they go forward.
Mr. Chairman, if I could, just very, very briefly, I misspoke. $11 million. I was saying 10.2. $11 million, just to be clear.
Randy?
I agree with Brian. And I was also in the crowd when the last time that this kind of went down in a fiery ball of fury. And what I would say is that's because as a taxpayer at that time, I didn't feel it was done right. I voted no because I thought it was a rush project that we hadn't gotten out to the town enough. We were coming off a major project. It wasn't sold properly to the town. I certainly wasn't convinced, sitting in the crowd that night, that it, kind of like you said, we were kind of presented with, vote for it now, or you know what, the price is going up. I sit in a different role right now, and it's a role that I think we can absolutely correct what I saw then as a mistake. I think there's some great work here done, but being part of the middle school building committee, I also know that having that committee is important. I wouldn't want to see this project go forward without a committee that I do not want to be on, formed and a proper OPM hired. And I mean, I don't even think this really is a schematic plan the way we look at it now, but I think there's some great work, and I want to see it done right, so when we do make the pitch, it's necessary and it gets passed this time. I would hate to think we're trying to rush this for a May town meeting, so I kind of do like Lincoln's approach, that we're kind of guaranteeing that people know it, see it, know we've done due diligence, and we do get it passed because we know how important it is.
Okay, so we'll have a meeting on December 7th, joint meeting with the DPW, and that will be commissioners. So that'll be the first meeting in December. And
Already got it posted.
that might be, well, we don't know. On the 23rd, we could figure out if we're going to have another meeting in December. We're going to have another one after the 7th. Okay, FY23 budget process.
Yes, so I just want to continue to keep the board updated on this. this is sort of inside baseball, but it is a bit of a change. So I just want to remind you of it, that we are for the first year using the town's accounting system, SoftWrite, to receive budget requests from departments. I've used that in the past. It will absolutely help make the process more understandable, I think, to all parties, and make sure that we have version control in terms of, we don't want to be running a budget of our size off of spreadsheets. We want a program that will help us balance it, that where we know where we are in balance as we move forward in the budget process. So I just want to continue to keep the board updated about that. Those departmental budget requests for fiscal year 2023, for the fiscal year beginning on July 1st, will be due in early December, and then we'll be working towards a balanced budget document for fiscal year 2023 towards the end of December, early January. So that's all. Yeah.
Great.
And just briefly, I know our veteran service officer was intending actually to come during the public forum to talk about the Tri-Town Parade. I think everybody here knows about the Tri-Town Parade, but I just sort of want to make a little pitch for it. She said she was going to try and make it, but she actually had a 6 o'clock meeting that's probably still going on to talk about with her fellow veteran service officers in the other two towns to make sure the parade is all set. So that's why she's not here. But I do want to just briefly mention it. It hasn't happened in 2 years, and I know we're all excited about it. Kicking off in Abington, 10 a.m. This coming Thursday, Veterans Day. So just want to make a little pitch for folks to come out and enjoy it and pay tribute to our veterans.
Thank you. We need to go into executive session in accordance with Mass General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 21A, Exception 3, to discuss strategy with respect to collective bargaining or litigation if an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the bargaining or litigating position of the public body, and Exception 6, to consider the purchase, exchange, lease, or value of real property if the chair declares that an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the negotiating position of the public body. Is there a motion to go into executive session?
I'll make that motion.
Second?
Yes.
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 We're in executive session, and we'll come back into open session only to adjourn.